Josh Friedman in Skopje, Macedonia. I'm on the final leg of my current trip around the former Yugoslavia, and there is action here in Skopje as the name deal between Macedonia and Greece is now being debated in the building behind me. That is the Macedonian Parliament here in Skopje, and I'm going to get you caught up on the developments related to the name agreement. Unfortunately, last month I missed the referendum that was held here in Macedonia on approving the agreement with Greece to change the name of this country to North Macedonia so that this country can get into NATO and the EU. The referendum basically resulted in a stalemate. Actually, both sides claimed victory, as at times occurs here during elections. What happened was there was about a 94% vote for yes in favor of changing the name of the country, and about 6% no, but the turnout was only about 37%. And by Macedonian law, in order for the referendum results to be legally binding, there need to be 50% or majority turnout in the referendum, and it wasn't even close to that. So the opposition, particularly people from the VMRO, the Conservative or Nationalist Party, as well as the protesters who've been out here for weeks or months, they claim victory, saying, the protesters who are camped out here like to say the referendum went kaput. That's the word that they use when they speak with me. But at the same time, Prime Minister Zoran Zaev, who called the referendum and was leading the charge to try to get this name agreement passed and to try to get Macedonia into NATO and the EU, he's pressing ahead with trying to get the name agreement through Parliament, and that means changing the Macedonian constitution, and that's going to require a 2/3 majority vote, which at the moment it appears he does not have. So Zaev's coalition has somewhere around 70 of the 120 seats in the Macedonian Parliament. They will need 80 votes, or a 2/3 majority, in order to change the constitution and change the name of this country to North Macedonia. In just a matter of hours or maybe minutes, or maybe they're already underway right now, in this building behind me, Macedonian lawmakers starting today are debating whether or not to give permission to the government to draft a constitutional amendment so that they could change the name of the country to satisfy Greece and so on. It's going to require a 2/3 vote just to get over this initial hurdle, which is approving getting started on a draft amendment, and it's going to take, I believe, a total of 3 votes in order to get the entire process approved here on the Macedonian side of the border. There's also going to have to be approval on the Greek side of the border for the entire deal to go through, and there is some international pressure that's being placed on VMRO, the opposition whose supporters are out here protesting right now. There's some pressure being placed on them from the West to support this deal, but thus far there's been no indication that VMRO will support, or any VMRO lawmakers will support this deal. And if that's the case, then what's likely going to happen, and could happen as soon as the next few days, is that Zaev basically accepts defeat in this round of the long drawn-out process of trying to get the name changed. And if Zaev cannot get over the initial hurdle or get over the hurdle of Parliament in general, then what he said he's going to do is call snap elections, and then it would be up to the voters, Macedonian voters, to try to elect a government that would either kill the deal or get it through. And this process could drag on for a long time, particularly if that indeed happens and the government collapses and Zaev calls for snap elections. Who knows if Zaev would pick up more seats if they were to go to elections? Maybe the opposition would come out stronger from snap elections. I'll give you a look at the setup here. So there's been a protest camp for weeks, or actually months. I've reported to you from there a couple months back. Frankly, the opposition that's out here on the streets right now is not very impressive. I've seen much larger protests in this city coming from both sides of the aisle politically. But as far as we know right now, Zaev is lacking the votes to even get over this initial hurdle in trying to get the name agreement through Parliament. So I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about the international reaction to where we're at. So in the lead up to the referendum, they're chanting resign or resignation. In the lead up to the election, major Western figures and politicians came out here and overtly supported the referendum and voting to change the name, and they included German Chancellor Angela Merkel. She actually came out here to Macedonia in support of Zaev and the referendum. And that support, as well as from NATO, the US, the EU in general, it was not enough to get 50% to show up and vote. And now in the aftermath of the referendum, the EU is continuing to push for Zaev and the Macedonian government to push this deal through Parliament, even though critics are saying, well, there's not a majority in the country that supports the deal, and the EU's drawn some criticism for that, and there have been allegations of Western interference in internal Macedonian affairs, and then on the other side there have been allegations of Russian interference in trying to block this deal from going through to stop Macedonia from joining NATO. So, as is always the case, internal Macedonian disputes tend to become geopolitical tug-of-wars as well. So there is a lot at play here. I really don't know when they're gonna have this initial vote. I'd like to be here for it, but my hunch is that it's probably not gonna happen today. There have been some international media reports saying that the vote will be today. What we do know is that Parliament will be debating today, but it could be a matter of days or even a week or more before this first vote. So I probably will not remain in town to see what happens here in person with the vote and the reaction from the people and the protesters and both sides of the name dispute here in Macedonia. But if indeed they were to vote today, I would immediately report back to you, and regardless, I plan on giving you at least one more report here before I leave town in order to wrap up my stay here in Macedonia, as well as to give you a little bit of a wrap to my entire trip around the former Yugoslavia. So for now, this is Josh Friedman calling it a wrap from Skopje, Macedonia. Stay tuned, one more report will come. Ciao.